Good afternoon. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I will give a brief statement and then I will take some questions at the end. My name is Martin Halloran. I'm the president of the San Francisco Police Officers Association. Since 1849, the San Francisco Police Department has been charged with protecting the citizens of this great city. The men and women of this department responded to this call for service, and each of us are sworn to a solemn oath to serve the community. Not for money, not for prestige, but to serve as a first line of defense for every member of our community without regard to race, sexual identity, or socioeconomic status. As someone who has walked in their shoes and served this department in this city, I can tell you firsthand that every officer prays every day that he or she is never forced to discharge their weapon, understanding fully the severe ramifications of such actions on the community and on the officer. In fact, we are vigorously trained to de-escalate dangerous situations and avoid using deadly force at all cost. And our crisis intervention training has become a model for all departments throughout this country. Our policies discourage force, and we prescribe various methods when confronted with situations where control must be exercised to maintain public safety. Our officers are trained using a variety of tactics, including verbal warnings, persuasion, utilizing agents such as pepper spray, department-issued batons, and beanbags to affect and manage dangerous situations. We are trained to strictly adhere to codes and to department procedures like General Order 5.01, which states in part that, quote, "The policy of the San Francisco Police Department is to accomplish the mission as effectively as possible with the highest regard for dignity of all persons and with minimal reliance upon the use of physical force," unquote. It also states that, quote, "Officers are permitted to use whatever force is reasonable and necessary to protect others or themselves," unquote. This has been reaffirmed by the courts in Graham versus Connor. We are trained to follow these codes and departmental orders. We take them extremely seriously. The officer-involved shooting of 2 weeks ago impacts all of us, both within the department and throughout the community. On behalf of my members and our board of directors, who are standing here with me, along with members of the community, we express our deepest sympathies to all of those affected by this tragic event. Taking a human life is the last thing any police officer desires. We try to avoid these situations at all costs. Regrettably, in certain encounters, this is our final option after all forms of non-lethal force have been exhausted. To this end, we have engaged the Police Commission, not once, but twice, asking it to provide additional non-lethal options in the continuum of force. Electronic controlled devices, otherwise referred to as tasers, are widely seen as the safest use of force option for the police. A report by the Justice Department under former Attorney General Eric Holder verified that the use of ECDs can significantly reduce injuries to the suspect. Equipping officers with tasers has become the standard practice throughout the country. Tasers are used in over 100 countries throughout the world, and nearly 2/3 of the agencies in the United States, which this country has over 20,000 law enforcement agencies. Over 700 studies have shown that the device is a safe, more effective technology than other uses of force. In fact, it is estimated that tasers have saved over 150,000 lives to date. In spite of the overwhelming factual evidence, our proposed solution has been twice rejected by individuals who chose to play politics with public safety. And today, I implore our public officials and appointed commissioners to act without further delay. It is tragic that it takes the loss of life to bring us to where we are today. But today, we must ensure that out of this tragedy comes meaningful action to move our city forward. Today, I announce that we are working with the Mayor's Office, the Office of the Chief of Police, and members of the Police Commission to adopt a pilot program that will allow tasers to be used by my members as soon as possible to give them this critical tool to maintain public safety and protect and save lives. We can no longer afford to wait on this. A statement once said, "The police are the public and the public are the police." We agree. These interests belong to all of us. Our officers put themselves in harm's way every day and deserve every possible tool to keep themselves and the public safe. And our community deserves the best from our officers in training, in equipment, and in stature. I ask that together we demand this of our decision makers in city government. I thank you, and I will take some questions.
Marty, who specifically is playing politics with this? If you're working with the mayor, you're working with the chief, who's playing politics with tasers and blocking this?
Well, it has happened on more than one occasion. Back in 2004, under Chief Heather Fong, tasers were denied to my members by the police commission, certain members of the police commission. That happened again under Chief George Gascon in 2010. Certain members of the commission at that time denied tasers for my members, even after an officer-involved shooting that occurred along the Embarcadero, where tasers would have made a difference. They possibly would have saved that individual's life who had just slashed a coworker. Now, when Chief Sir became chief, he tried it again in front of the commission. Once again, politics were played, and the policy that was put forward was so restrictive to our members that basically an assessment of a person's mental health had to be done before an officer could even draw a taser. Well, that is not practical. So that's where the politics plays in.
With the commission or with the board of supervisors?
Well, with the commission, and since the officer-involved shooting of December 2nd, we have had a number of politicians that have made irresponsible statements, in my opinion, related to that officer-involved shooting.
Martin, there is a call at the Board of Supervisors and the Police Commission to de-escalate officers' response to situations. How do you balance that? How do you feel about that? And how do you balance it with your officers' safety?
Well, de-escalation has been a part of the San Francisco Police Department for over a year. I do applaud Chief Sir for having trained more officers in crisis intervention training than any other agency our size. Part of that crisis intervention training is de-escalation. So this is nothing new to our department. It has been in place for a while.
So are you ready to support more de-escalation?
Absolutely. As I stated last week to one of the reporters, if I was chief, and of course that day will never come, but if I was chief, I would immediately call for all members of this department to go through crisis intervention training without depleting staffing out in the field. So that would mean you would have to bring in staff members at the academy on the weekends, at nights, and you would have to send members up there and pay them to go through that training. That is the quickest way to do it, but of course that costs money, and that's where the politics comes in.
How do you feel about shields? The chief ordered shields to be distributed to the officers. Are you ready to use them?
The shields have been distributed to the district stations. Are the officers ready to use them? No, because there is no training in place, and members from the tactical division have searched nationwide to find an agency in this country that uses shields to disarm a suspect with an edged weapon. It doesn't exist. It can be used in extraction in a confined area, much like the deputy sheriffs use it in the jail, but they're also in a full protective suit, much like a bomb suit or a dog suit.
Marty, what do you think about this policy of having to document or report every time a gun is pulled out and pointed, whether it's used or not?
Yeah, that policy just came out by the department last Friday under a department bulletin. That policy was in the works for the past 4 months, I believe. It was brought to my attention several months ago. I did request a meet and confer with the department because I believed it was a change of working conditions. It turns out it was. So this is something that's not new. Oakland PD has already had this in place, and this all stems from a court ruling in the Ninth Circuit Court, Green versus City and County of San Francisco. So it is a use of force. The question is it a reportable use of force?
In your
What is
opinion?
your opinion?
In my opinion, it will probably be ultimately a reportable use of force.
So you're not going to challenge that change in policy?
What I'm challenging, and I sent a letter to the chief this past Saturday, is the meet and confer that was not adhered to by the department, because the bulletin doesn't cover some of the specifics as to what the officers are to do out in the street, how they do it, and when they actually report it. So the bulletin needs to be tweaked. And my beef with the department is the lack of the meet and confer.
So
Well,
you're,
what impact do
and
you
you're
think
ready
that
to
would
accept
have
it
on
though?
your rank and file?
I'm sorry, Carolyn?
What impact do you think that would have on your officers?
Okay, it will have an impact on the officers. They will have to call supervisors to all scenes where a firearm has been pointed at a subject. It will require more report writing. It will more than likely take more members off the streets to complete those reports. They have to be completed before the end of their shifts. So it's going to be a little bit more downtime for the rank and file.
But do you think it'll have an impact on officer-involved shootings, or will people be less likely to pull their gun out knowing they have to report it?
That was also my concern, and I'm going to raise that with the chief. I have a meeting scheduled with the chief on Monday. I do not want to see any of my members hesitate to do what they're doing as long as they're in policy, and hesitate to draw their firearm in a situation that it's necessary.
What impact do you think that tasers could have had in the situation with Mario Woods?
I think if tasers were available at that officer-involved shooting, there could have been a completely different outcome. You would not be here talking to me. But I also believe if that individual did what he was ordered to do numerous times and dropped the knife and surrendered, we would not be here talking about this either. There was a lot of non-lethal force that was used at that incident. The chief has made that clear, that beanbags were deployed, pepper spray was deployed, crisis intervention trained officers were there, and this individual would not drop the knife, and it appeared that he was trying to leave the scene. So my members, being sworn, and Penal Code 835A states that we do not have to back down from an incident, and we would not be considered the aggressors. We cannot let an individual who is accused of stabbing an innocent bystander walk freely down 3rd Street without being apprehended by the police, and he had every opportunity to surrender. It's tragic what happened. His day in court is also tragic. He will never see that. But these officers were put into an impossible situation. And 8 seconds of video does not dictate the entire incident.
So you're working on a pilot program with the chief and the mayor, and so then what is that to do? Create a program to present to the police commission for approval?
Well, I spoke to a staff member at the mayor's office, and he asked me what's the best course of action. Well, I said dust off the old proposal from 2010 that Chief Gascon put forward to the commission, because that one almost received enough votes to pass. So they since have found that old policy. They've sent it to me. My executive board and our labor council will look at it and we'll offer some suggestions. We're willing to work with the mayor's office and the police commission to get this done on a fast pace.
So you don't want a replay of all the conditions on tasers that were imposed the last time it came in front of the commission?
That's when Chief Sir presented it in 2012. The conditions were so restrictive that even the chief said, I'm going to pull it off of the table because it's not practical. It cannot work in the field. If in fact you have to assess someone's mental health status before you deploy a less lethal, then what's the point of having it?
I don't know, but if they go and put that back in, are you going to support it or are you going to say no?
Well, I would ask those commissioners now, do we want a repeat of what happened on December 2nd? Let them answer that first.
Have your officers felt any backlash personally from the community as a result of the Mario Woods shooting?
There has been quite a bit of negative comments towards my officers, some from organized labor, such as the San Francisco Labor Council, who quite frankly don't know what they're talking about. There's been some other organizations and of course many individuals who voiced their concerns in front of the police commission, but there's also those that have been calling here at the POA, emailing me at the POA, supporting the officers, what they're doing and how they're doing it to keep this city safe.
But I mean out on the street as they walk the beat or ride or whatever.
I have not heard that from any of my members.
Last question.
Pardon me?
Sorry to cut you off. Last question, just sort of the frustration level, I can sense that you're frustrated. Can you talk about that and how it's, you know, you have all these other police departments who could use tasers, but you're not? Like, if you had to make a plea to the public, because this seems to be something that, you know, the public is talking about, and we live in a very liberal city, what would you say to them to convince them that this is something that we need?
Well, you do not need to look any further from the December 2nd incident and another incident that occurred 2 years ago along the Embarcadero where tasers could have saved those individuals' lives. Now, I would implore the public to contact their supervisors, and their supervisors have direct contact with members of the police commission and the mayor, and let's move on this. Let's move on it now. Let's not just talk about it. Let's actually do something about it.
But you know, a lot of people say tasers aren't the issue, that you talked about the crisis intervention training. That's something that people are calling for, of that sort of thing. They don't think having another tool is the answer.
I would wholeheartedly disagree with them. If that be the case, why do the majority of law enforcement agencies throughout the country have them? Why has it proven to save over 150 lives, 150,000 lives worldwide? I would disagree with them.
Would you promote any other policy changes in terms of use of force?
Is
it just a matter of adding the tasers, or would you want to rework some of the use of force policies?
The entire use of force policy under Department General Order 5.01 is being looked at by the Chief's office, by the Police Commission, and we will have a say at that. We will be meeting with them next week in regards to that. We will have a say on amending that policy, and
what do you think needs to be amended?
Well, putting in tasers,
well,
first of all.
Other than tasers, is there anything in the policy that you think needs to be massaged at all to benefit your members and the public?
Well, there are other options out there, and I'm not sure if the department's looking at them yet because I haven't met with them yet, but the deployment of what's called stinger balls, like paintballs or pepper spray balls, where you don't have to get that close to an individual. You could fire a stinger ball or a pepper ball at them, and hopefully that would bring them into compliance. There's a lot of different things out there. Shields are being looked at. I don't see how shields are going to work taking on an individual with an edged weapon without endangering my members, and I would not sign off on
We
that.
got time for one more.
I just want to make sure I'm very clear on this. So, do you support the bulletin that came out on Friday? Do you support that as a good practice for your members?
This is my statement on that. The Ninth Circuit Court has ruled on that under Green versus City and County of San Francisco. Department bulletins are put out not just in San Francisco Police Department, but many other agencies based on court rulings. We have to adhere to what the courts have ruled on. So the bulletin was already in the works long before December 2nd, and we have to adhere to what the courts are telling us to do. So they're calling it a use of force. The question is it a reportable use of force? The department believes it is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that the department bulletin that was put out was not complete. It did not have all the information. It did not give complete direction to the members. That's why I'm insisting on a meet and confer with the department.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.